Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Command Point. My name's Ryan. Today I'm here with Shane, and we are going to be taking a look today at the new Blooded Kill team from the Morok box set.
The more exciting of the two teams for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, great models, great aesthetic.
hmm
The traitor guardsmen, I guess you could call them.
Yeah, I'd call them that. This team is very cool. They're definitely not the most powerful kill team out right now. But this team looks like they're a lot of fun to play.
This is going to be part one of our Morok kill team box breakdown. Part two is going to be coming out at the same time as this. So if you're watching the blooded kill team video right now, which you obviously are, then and you're interested in the Phobos, go and check out part two as well, because that is the episode where we're going to be talking about the Phobos kill team. But first and foremost, we have to be talking about the blooded kill team, Ryan. So I mean, you're the one who looked at the blooded. I looked at the Phobos. So why don't you kick us off?
The thing that makes the blooded kill team kind of work basically is their blooded ability. So basically the way it works is you have a pool of tokens called blooded tokens, and these tokens are added to the pool at the start of each initiative phase. The first time an enemy operative is incapacitated in each turning point, and the first time a friendly operative is killed within 6 inches of an enemy operative in each turning point. So for those of you doing the math at home, that's a maximum of, I think, 12. Just going off like these little triggers here, they do have some tricks that allow you to accrue more blooded tokens over the course of the game. All right, so what you do with these blooded tokens is once in each strategy phase, when it is your turn to use a strategic play or pass, you can choose to assign any or all of your blooded tokens to friendly operatives. Each operative can only be assigned a single blooded token. And then if you assign blooded tokens to 4 or more of your operatives, one of them can be under the gaze of the gods. All operatives with blooded tokens can auto-retain 1 attack dice when they shoot or fight as a successful normal hit, and the operative who's under the gaze of the gods can auto-retain 1 attack dice when they are shooting or fighting as a successful crit.
I was going to ask. So the under the gaze of the gods thing, to be clear, there's other things that are important pertaining to which model is under the gaze of the god, correct?
There is a ploy that they benefit from. I think it's a Moment of Rebuke, I believe. The abilities that you get from this, they're not. I mean, they're not really that good, but like they're a nice bonus to have, and they do unlock some abilities. So moving on now, we're going to take a look at the ploys for the Blooded Kill team. From what I gathered from looking at this team and from looking at their ploys, the Blooded are they're essentially like melee guard. They want to swarm their enemies in close combat, and two of the ploys kind of like support this strategy or feed into it. First, we have the Dirty Fighter strategic ploy for 1 CP, which allows a blooded operative fighting in combat to retain 1 normal hit as a crit if it's being supported by another friendly operative. So, in order to get that off, you got to have like multiple operatives on the same target. And then next up there is the Callous Disregard ploy for 1 CP. This is a tactical ploy. It allows a blooded operative to make shooting attacks against an enemy operative who is locked in combat with a friendly operative. It prevents the target from using friendly operative spaces as cover, and this comes at the cost of turning all of your failed hits into successful hits, which you make against one of your friendly operatives that is locked in combat.
That one, I really wish that because the Pathfinders have a very similar ploy to this where they can shoot in a melee. They don't have that part where if you fail, it hits your friendly guy. I wish the Pathfinders had that too, because really like that as like a the downside, a potential downside to using a play like that.
Yeah, so the way that I would probably wind up using this play is just like charging in like a couple of like your grunts really that just like don't
Mhm.
really that aren't really particularly good at anything. Just your troopers, get them locked in combat, and then have like a plasma gunner or something take a shot.
And ideally, your plasma gunner would have a blooded token, or it would probably be under the gaze of the gods if that was an option for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that, about which models I would want to be putting my blooded tokens on later in this video.
All right, cool.
So the last ploy that really stuck out to me was the tactical ploy Moment of Rebuke for 1 CP. It looks like it can be pretty clutch, especially in the late game. The way it works is you use this tactical ploy when a blooded operative that is under the gaze of the gods is activated. You add 1 to its APL. So those are kind of like the three big ploys that stood out to me when I was looking through the booklet here.
So, like, how many operatives, generally speaking, is this team going to have?
Okay,
Like, roughly.
so I believe this team can field up to 14 operatives, but realistically, you're going to be fielding up to like 12. And that's because there are a couple models in this roster, namely the Trader Ogren and the Enforcer, which count as making two selections instead of just counting as a single model in your roster building section. Yeah, so realistically, you're going to be fielding up to 12 operatives, and you can field up to a max of 2 Trader Gunners. The Melta, Plasma, and like the grenade launcher are the ones that stand out the most. And you can include one of each operative aside from troopers, as per like most kill teams in the game. The absolute standout model of this team is, of course, the Trader Ogren. And against most teams, I would be building my kill team around this operative. He's got 16 wounds, but he only has a 5-up save, and he doesn't have any sort of invulnerable save or any abilities that allow him to ignore damage. So you might have to be playing a little cagey with him, if you're running up against like plasma guns and melta guns and stuff like that. So like despite those like vulnerabilities, he still has like a really big pool of wounds that your enemy needs to chew through, and his offensive output is so good that he seems like he's an auto include for me.
I was surprised that he wasn't APL 3, but I guess it makes kind of sense. Like, Ogrins are pretty dumb.
Yeah, they're
Like,
dumb, and there are some abilities that reflect that. He can't perform any mission actions or anything, but the trade-off for that is like he ignores stun, he ignores any sort of ability that I think impairs his APL.
yeah, I mean, he's a big monster for for the other smaller models to do their thing and help you win the game, kind of, and score points.
Yeah, for sure. So next up is the Trader Corpsman. So for me, this model is an absolute auto include because of his regular dosage ability. What this does is if you deploy the Trader Corpsman, or excuse me, the Trader Corpsman, whenever you deploy him, you choose another operative on your team, and he gives that model either relentless to the operative's melee weapons, or it gives that model a 6-up ignore damage, basically. Both of these are really good, but it doesn't matter which option I'm gonna go with that game. I'm gonna be giving it to the Trader Ogren 100% of the time. That 6-up feel no pain helps shore up, the lack of an invulnerable save or any sort of ignore damage abilities. And Relentless just makes him an absolute monster. Next up is the Trader Enforcer. So he's to me seems like he's an okay option. He has a Power Fist and he has 8 wounds. I think he has a 4-up save. Um, so he'd be good to be put under the gaze of the gods because this guy can actually perform mission actions. But with him counting as 2 selections, in a lot of matchups, like against like other hordes, I'm just gonna have him ride the bench and bring in like 2 troopers with crack grenades or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if either of these are gonna be like replaced by two regular troopers, it's probably gonna be the enforcer. Like, my first opinion was the power fist is nice, but the fact that it hits on fours and it's only 4 attacks, a lot of the
Right.
time it's like that damage is nice, but if you're just rolling bad a lot of the time, it might not matter. So, but I agree that the Ogren is probably like 90% of the time going to be there on the roster. It's just such a massive model that does so much damage. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and the enforcer's abilities don't look huge enough for me to like auto include him.
Another model that I really like is the Flenser. because he kind of reminds me of the Orc Commandos. He can charge with a Conceal Order thanks to his Wretched ability, and that's really useful. The Traitor Chieftain has an ability called Lead with Strength, so he's treated as if he's under the gaze of the gods if he is more than 6 inches from your deployment zone, and he has been assigned a blood token that turn. And you always want to get this guy out with a plasma pistol. So essentially getting an auto crit with a plasma pistol, assuming he has a blood token and he's outside a 6 of your drop zone, that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good.
So there's some weirdness I noticed with the way that you kit out the chieftain. So if he takes a plasma pistol, his melee weapon is the improvised blade,
Yes,
right?
it has to be an improvised blade, but I mean that's fine. I don't want to put this guy in melee anyway. I just want to take another plasma weapon. Next is another auto include, and this is the Brimstone Grenadier. He comes with frag and crack grenades for free, so already you're going to be taking this model just for that free crack grenade. And then he also has his Diabolic Bomb, which is kind of like in between the frag and the crack grenade. It's not as powerful as the crack grenade in terms of damage output, but it's got some cool keywords and abilities attached to it that are kind of useful. The Trader Butcher, which is one of my favorite models, just aesthetics wise, from this kit. He has the Blood Offering ability, which gives you a blooded token the first time you strike with a crit in combat. And this is a model that has 4 attacks at damage 4/6 with lethal 5 up. And he's also most of the models in this team have 7 wounds. He's got 8. So he's giving you another way to amass blooded tokens. He's 8 wounds, so he's in that I guess that second tier of wounds really. With a lethal 5-up weapon. It's
Yeah.
it's
And if he
he's
kills
good.
something, he gets D3 wounds back, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Let's talk about their equipment now, just because we took a look at the models. So equipment is pretty limited with this team. The team can take crack grenades, so that's pretty much an auto include. For your models that are otherwise armed with just las guns or just melee weapons and don't have any ranged, weapons.
Mhm.
In total, the team can take up to 4 crack grenades, which is really nice because they don't really have that much lethality at range outside of their gunners. The Ogren is a monster in melee. A lot of the models, the Butcher is good in melee, but this is a team that needs as much damage output as can be fielded. Outside of the grenades, I think the only thing that stood out for me were the chem breathers, just because it feels like there's a lot of stuff in this game now that can subtract from a model's action point limit, and so just having this one equipment point piece of equipment that you can put on any model, and it just gets to ignore that, any sort of ability to, hamper your APL. That can be pretty good.
It was interesting to see the Sinister trophy because this is basically the same thing, as far as I'm aware, as the Grizzly trophy
Yeah.
that the Chaos Space Marines get. I think that's a pretty interesting one to throw on a Butcher or something that's going to be getting close up and fighting, or a Cleanser maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the Ogren doesn't. He can't take equipment, so obviously that's out of the question. But as far as those other melee specialist guys like Butcher or the Flunzer, Sinister Trophy might be in almost an auto take down the line at some point.
The thing is
I
with
think
this
it's
team
pretty
is
good.
they're all only 7 or 8 wounds. If I could put the Sinister Trophy on the Bulgrin, I would, but I can't.
A lot of things, if you're against orcs, they only have 4 attacks, so going down to 3 attacks sucks. They're just as likely to only get 1 hit as they are to get 2,
Gotcha.
and at that point they can't even kill you.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that I haven't talked about yet with this team is the Tacops, and that is for good reason. Most of them are just bad. The one that that I don't even want to say I really like it, but at least it plays into this faction's play style is Bloodbath. This is the third one. The way it works is if more than half of the enemy kill team has been incapacitated at the end of the battle, you score 1 VP. And if you kill 3/4 of the enemy kill team at the end of the battle, you score another VP. So it's literally just kill. And
And I mean
it's like,
that's
all
also
right,
reflected in the fact that their only archetype is seek and destroy, which I think
that's right.
really sucks considering their tech ops aren't amazing. Like if you look at Vetguard, they have only security, which is fine because security is good, and their tech ops are not terrible either.
Right.
Um, but like if you don't have great tech ops and your only option is seek and destroy, that's definitely going to hurt this team's capability to score points.
This team is it's very straightforward in how they want to be run. They want to get in close with the enemy, preferably in melee combat. They do have some ranged combat, with that tac ploy I was telling you about earlier. You can lock models up in in melee and then blast them off the table with a ranged weapon, kind of like game breaking there, um, which is pretty cool. They seem like they're a fun team to play. I guess I've got some. I wrote some example teams that I guess we can go over before we get out of here. So I've got one team for if I'm playing against hordes, and I've got another team if I'm playing against elites. So let's start off with the hordes here. So for my anti-horde team, I guess we'll call it, I've got the Chieftain with plasma pistol and blade. Obviously he's the only leader model you can take, and that's the best loadout for him. It doesn't matter the matchup. Next up, we have the Corpseman, and I would be giving the 6-up Feel No Pain to the Ogren in most of these matchups, just because, I'm thinking like Vetguard, and they've got Melt-A-Guns and Plasma Guns and the Sniper. I just don't want him to get flattened before he even is able to make it into melee combat. Next, we've got the Brimstone Grenadier, and I've decided to throw a Chem Breather on him because why not? I don't want anybody messing with this guy's APL, especially when he's going to be chucking grenades at people. Then I've got the Butcher, the Flenser, a Gunner with a Plasma Gun, a Gunner with a Grenade Launcher, as opposed to the Melt-A-Gun, just for longer range. If I'm fighting against hordes, they're going to be softer targets. I'm not going to have to use a Melt-A-Gun, really. That's just going to be overkill. I've got the Sharpshooter. His sniper isn't really that good, especially compared to snipers that other teams have, but he's better than a regular trooper. Then I've got the Trench Sweeper on here. He's got a special ability with his shield that makes him intriguing as like a mid or backfield objective holder. And we've got a Thug with a crack grenade, because he doesn't have a ranged weapon, I don't think, so might as well have him carry one of the cracks. Then we've got the Ogren, of course, and then I've got 2 Trader Troopers, and each of those guys are armed with crack grenades. Shane, what do you think of that team?
So I mean, I really like it. The one we didn't really talk about much that I do love is the Thug, and his I believe he reduces normal damage by 1. Am I thinking of a different guy, or is that the Thug? Right.
No, I believe that's a Thug, yeah.
I think that's a really cool ability. Giving him a crack grenade makes a lot of sense to me because he's going to be getting up close and kind of in your face. And to me, the first thing I thought when I saw the Thug was that it's kind of like the Bruiser for Vetguard, if
Yeah.
that was a good model, because the Bruiser kind of sucks, but the Thug is awesome overall. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. The only thing I talked about it earlier, I really like the Grizzly trophy thing that's not called that, and I've already forgotten what it's called, but I do like that one potentially in a melee model. But overall, I think pretty good.
Yeah, probably throwing that on like the Butcher
Hmm.
probably would be the best way to go, I would think. So next up, I've got my anti-elite team. So this is playing against like, teams like Death Guard or Space Marines, stuff like that. So once again, we've got the Chieftain with the plasma pistol. We've got the Corpseman. We've got the Brimstone Grenadier. Here's where it starts to deviate. We've got the Butcher, and this model is going to be carrying the crack grenade for me, as well as the Flenser. Both of those guys are going to be carrying cracks. Then we've got the Gunner with Plasma Gun. We've got a Gunner with the Melt-A-Gun, because we're going up against Space Marine armor here. We want to be able to punch through it with just like a couple shots. We've got the Sharpshooter. We've got the Trench Sweeper again. We've got the Thug once again carrying a crack grenade. And then I've got the Ogren here, and with the Corpseman, we're going to be giving him Relentless in this matchup. And then we've got the Enforcer. I decided to go with the Enforcer for that Power Fist, and I'm going to be throwing a Chem Breather on him, just so that nobody can mess with his APL. Because I figure, well, if I'm going to be putting this model under the gaze of the gods a lot of the time, might as well make it so that he's going to be able to maintain 3 APL. If you were to put the trophy on any of the models in this list, which would you put it on?
Probably still the Butcher. I really like that Butcher with a trophy.
Okay.
The Flenser makes kind of sense, but like the Flenser, like if he dies, he can still whack you. So like, not the end of the world if he goes away.
Yeah.
But the Butcher, I think he really likes that. It's
Yeah.
like if he's okay with taking one hit because he'll kill you and regenerate 1d3. But beyond that, still an 8 wound model. He probably doesn't want to get hit a lot.
Well, all right, guys. So that pretty much wraps it up for the Blooded Kill team. Thank you all for watching. A special thank you to our patrons for supporting us over on Patreon. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And, of course, make sure to turn into part 2 where we're going to be covering the Phobos Marines. Yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.